Alright, so this is going to be your mini introduction at the speed of light to iPhone and iPad operating system. So I won't do the examples tonight. Instead, I'll focus primarily on the examples on Wednesday because I don't want to rush through those. But I'll rush through this dry material about the introduction because this is your first day of class, so you have to get dry material. That's the requirement. I already went through what we needed, actually. We need a MacBook. We need Xcode. You need Lion or higher if possible. And you need to get it from the App Store. Don't download it from some crazy site. There's a lot of crazy sites out there. Say, download Xcode. It's gimmicks. You know, here, fill this form out, fill that form out. You never get there. It's only available legitimately from Apple. The operating system is only available legitimately from Apple as well. Because you'll see, when you guys with your Windows computers, the first thing you're going to do tonight or tomorrow, Xcode for Windows. How do I do a Macintosh? You know, how do I figure this out? Because I'm not going to buy an Apple computer. I refuse to buy an Apple computer. Blah blah blah. And you'll see all these download BitTorrents and stuff for all of these ISO images of Lion, and again, full of viruses, full of hoaxes, full of fill this form out, fill out form out. If you get to it, be very cautious about what it is you're downloading, actually, because and also can probably get fined heavily if Apple ever finds out, because Xcode is free. Operating system is not free. Lion costs money, so it's not that much money. It's like 15 bucks, you know, if you're upgrading, or $100, $150 to buy it from the store. It's not that expensive, but it's not free. So whatever you're getting is illegal. It's like downloading a PDF that you didn't buy or something, and it's full of viruses and full of problems and issues. So just do things legitimately. Okay, that was your introduction. So it's the same. So what we're building for is the iOS, which is why I keep saying iOS 5, iOS 6. We're on iOS 5 right now. What is iOS? It's the operating system for the mobile platform. It's not OS X. It's iOS, which is the operating system. Runs on the Apple TVs, the iPhones, the iPads, all of the lower ones. It's built off of OS X, actually. It's a variation of it. It's Linux-based with a Linux kernel that runs just like OS X, but it's a mini version of it. So when you go into Xcode, and if you're in the Objective-C class, you can compile for the MacBook for a Coca interface, which is on Mac, which is similar to MFC for Windows. You can follow that parallel. Or you can compile for iPhone, iPad. You can actually do both in the same project. Well, not the same project. You have to create different project types, and we'll get into that. I'll save that for Wednesday. So the languages used to develop is Objective-C, very C-like. You can actually write C++ code in it as well. And you can use C++ notation as well, although you should really be using Objective-C for it, because who knows how much longer that will be supported. And true iPhone developers use Objective-C. And this is not a workshop, so you don't have to worry about that. I basically used my class notes for the workshop. So some indication on that previous slide about the workshop. Well, that was because it was recycled. That's why I asked if anyone was in the workshop. You're going to be bored if you were. So iOS is an OS, is a subset of OS X. The OS SDK is the software development kit that applies. You get that automatically. So in the old days, you downloaded Xcode and then you downloaded the SDK. Now it's just all in one, which is really simple. The emulators and everything, all in one, and they run really nicely. So you'll be very happy at that part. iOS is a multitasking, runs on different devices as well. Apple provides the IDE. The IDE is Xcode. Don't fight it, just use Xcode. Xcode is an IDE. It is used by iOS and OS X. It does not run on MS Windows. Xcode provides an interface to the compiler, the editor, debugger, and the code profiling tools. Device features. Just like the Android, we have a database on there. We have SQLite. In fact, you'll find a lot of similarities in concept. So it's nice if you know any mobile device development, if you ran the Android class. It's nice because then you'll see like how Apple thinks and how Android thinks. You can kind of compare and contrast, and then once you can do that, then you can kind of, then you have a better understanding of the overall features. Everybody's got SQLite. Everyone's got a database on there. Database storage is a little bit different on the iPhone now. And we'll talk about that in the course. Media support as well. Everybody does media support. In fact, you'll find the iPhone is more automated. Less work to do media on the iPhone. On the Android, it's like pulling teeth. iPhone built in. Nice. Actually, even the database stuff is nicer on the iPhone. And the GUI screen and the navigation is nicer on the iPhone. In fact, iPhone development is easier than Android. Only problem is Objective-C. If they could figure out, and they have, there's third-party tools that allow you, I'm trying to think of the name. There's a couple of them that were on the tip of my tongue a few minutes ago, and I can't remember them right now. There's a couple of IDE integrated development environment packages that allow you to use other languages. Like you can use HTML and JavaScript, and you can use PhoneGap. PhoneGap is one of them. PhoneGap is really nice. And if I remember, because I'm meaning to play around with PhoneGap for another project, you create one app and it compiles for iPhone, Android, all these other. Because the problem with the iPhone development is that Objective-C. It's too hard for some people to grasp. It's like if you're not a C++ developer, you didn't grow up with C in computer science, you can't learn it as easy as Java. So it's not quite as transferable in terms of skill set. However, there's a ton of third-party tools because everybody can do the GUI. The GUI is real easy, easier than Android. But there's a lot of third-party tools that will translate your code. So you write it in this, and it gets converted to Objective-C. So they're third-party, higher level. Only problem with those tools, and there's a ton of them out there, including this one called PhoneGap that I'm going to investigate recently, because I actually haven't used it, but I've been hearing a lot about it. It supports HTML5 and a lot of other kind of tool sets. And problem with that is you're adding weight to the app. The final product is much bigger. It's bulkier, heavier, slower running than a native app. So what we're going to be doing in this class is native app development. Although you get to cut and paste most of the Objective-C code, you won't actually have to write it yourself. A lot of the art is in the design, because Apple's all about industrial design anyway. And the design tools phenomenal. With a very little background, you can actually create some pretty interesting native apps that are pretty full functioning. Swift look a lot more professional than those Android apps. So Android is nice, and easy, and you can do a lot of programming with Java and Android. But most of the apps don't quite look as professional. They don't have that clean, polished look to them as the iPhone does, which is, the same thing can be said for the product, actually. A lot of people like the iPhones and the iPads because they're beautiful. They're clean lines and shadows and, all of the different features of the fonts and everything. You just don't get the same thing. And the displays are nicer, too. You don't get the same thing on an Android. But you can do anything you want on an Android. It's open source. iPhone, not open source. Not. Okay, so GSM, hardware. We'll look at the Bluetooth, the Edge, the Wi-Fi, all the things we did in the Android class, looking at the different features. We get to spend more time on that stuff in this class, however, because we don't have as much, GUI stuff, components and things, and layouts and layouts and stuff like that. It's simpler on the iPhone. Camera, GPS, rich development environment, including device simulations and tools. You'll love the developer tools. You'll love the emulator as well. Download the iOS SDK. It's for free. It's only available through the Apple Mac Store. Submit the App Store. Well, $99 a year if you want a basic account. Don't bother doing it until you after you take this class, then do it, because then you'll know for sure whether or not you want to get into this. In an 8-week course, you're probably not gonna just, you're probably gonna decide whether or not you're gonna continue. And what it's gonna take is a lot of practice. Like anything, you can't learn programming from listening to me. You can't learn development. You have to actually do it. So what we're gonna do on Wednesday is get started with the Xcode development and write Hello World and write another app. And the same thing that we're gonna, same thing that we basically did with the Android class is get your hands dirty. So if you bring your computer on Wednesday, we're going to go through. I have to stop in the slide set because this is going to start in with the first project. But let me just give you a preview of Xcode and what you want to do to prepare yourself for this class. When you download it, when I downloaded it, I just got the basic one. I didn't download all the extra stuff. And then there's some students who download all of the extra stuff along with Xcode. And the extra stuff is, I hope I still have the link up here. I still do. All this other stuff is extra stuff. You can get most of this extra stuff through Xcode. Assuming that some of you haven't downloaded this yet, you might be interested in knowing that you're probably only going to want two things out of here. You're going to want the Xcode Basic 4.3, and you're going to want a command line tools, because I'm actually going to start using some of the command line tools in this class, only because it can kind of show you, and they're GCC command line tools. But here's the trick. So you've downloaded Xcode because you taught, someone said you needed to do that. And I can't close this window. Okay. And here's a preview actually of what we're going to do on Wednesday. This is a screenshot by screenshot because they were all done on a Mac. You can actually do screenshots quite easily on the MacBook. But the reason why I have this up is I want you to not have to worry about installing a lot of stuff. So what you're going to do is you're going to download the base system. You're going to open up Xcode, hit Preferences up here in the right-hand corner, Preferences. You're going to click on the Download tab. And, hold on, let me get back to that other screen. Here we go. And this is what I'm talking about with the iOS versions. So if you know you're going to have code from previous iOS versions, like for example, I have actually the device debugging support for 3.0, 4.0, 4.3, the simulator for 4.3. I can actually download the 3.0 simulator as well, because what's going to happen, one of you is going to use the computer in the library and it has 3.0 on it, and I'm going to get your project and I want to be able to look at it. So in order for me to open it up, I got to go and get the iOS support for it, the debugging or the troubleshooting support. There's a 5.1, I only have 5.0, which is not a problem actually, because 5.1 hasn't been out that long. It's that one I told you that got updated like overnight, last month or so. But long story short, check and install now is the option that you're going to do. You're going to get over here, it's going to say uninstall, and it's going to be buttons, install, install. This is so much easier. This is so much easier to do than going through the website and downloading each one of those DMG files and saving them and then loading them, because you're duplicating efforts. Because some of this stuff will be installed automatically with Xcode. Now when you do this, it's going to take you about half a day. It's going to take you 4 to 5 hours. So don't do this on Wednesday morning if you want to bring it Wednesday night. So do this like, Tuesday, and plan on doing it while you're doing something else. The Xcode version on this Wi-Fi system here, which is faster than my house, took about 4 hours for the download to work, which was long. Although I was downloading a lot of stuff at the same time and uploading and stuff like that and using the computer. If you don't use the computer, I'd say about 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours probably for the main Xcode to download. This is going to take you about 45 minutes to an hour for each thing that you're going to install on top of that. So while you're working, or while you're doing something else, hook it up and watch it play. After the install, there's nothing. There's no configuration. It's not like the Android stuff where you have to install Eclipse and then you have to install the Android tools and you have to go VBox. Not that complicated. This is simple. It's just time consuming. So more time consuming than the Android stuff. So anyway, I was showing you this download for a reason, because a lot of people install it, and what ends up happening is once you've got Xcode installed, actually here I'll just show you something real quick. My new project, and then I come in here and I go, well, I want to create an iOS application, but actually, this is where the command tools are coming into place. And this is under the OS X side of the fence here. These options are going to change depending upon what you've got installed. So if you're looking at a book, you're looking at an example, and you're in here, and you don't have something that's in here, Your iOS version is probably different than the book or the website that you're looking at, or you have to upgrade. I mean, basically just go into preferences and click that button and see what's new. Because most likely you're missing something. Because what you're getting now, which is why the executable is so small, I believe, because, excuse me, the download is now 1.4 gigs. It doesn't have anything in it. In the old days, it used to be like 3 to 4 gigs in size, and it was loaded with all this stuff. So they pulled everything out and made it separate downloads, and to make that file smaller to download, Xcode-based system smaller. Plus, nobody wanted to install all that crap when they weren't going to use it. So, strategy is a little different now. So, if I come in here, however, it's kind of easy if I select, as an example, single, and you might want to do this just to check your installation as well. If I click on iOS, which is what we're going to use for this class, the Objective-C class is going to use Mac OS X. I can compile for both. It's the same language. If I click, as an example, single view application and click on next, and I just fill in some stuff here, I'm just going to say hello. I'll go through with this in a lot more detail on Wednesday when we do Hello World. I'm going to notice immediately I'm going to have iPad, iPhone, or Universal. If I put it on Universal and leave it on there, next time I go in it's going to be on there. And if I go next, I'm just going to create a Hello World just to, this is good, create, put it on the desktop. If I look up here in the left-hand corner of the screen, this is because right now I'm just going to show you how to test out your installation, make sure you've got what you need to get. Oh, I have the iPad 5.1 simulator. Okay. If I click on this little button here, it'll tell me what simulators I have installed. So as I'm following through the example, if I go, oh, I need a previous simulator. I only have simulators for 5.1 on here, actually. So then that means I need to upgrade it to get the 4.3 or to get the lower ones. Otherwise, I may or may not necessarily have the same effect or the same working type of project. So up here is where I'm going to get to see what I actually have installed, what I have actually working with. And then it's easy because I just click on the run icon as an example here. I'm going to have a little bit of compilation going on here. And check out how fast the simulator loads. It's an iPad simulator because that's the one I selected, I guess. Look at how fast that loads. Well, it should load my application too. I got the little round. Up, there we go. There we go. Hello. All right. Well, it was just a plain application. So you can see the top here, actually, because I have it in landscape mode. There we go. That's how fast the emulator runs. So if you were in the Android class, you know, it would have been like 10 minutes later. Something would have shown up on the screen. So. And then I can switch it here. Let me just shut the simulator down. Let's put it on a iPhone device. There we go. And then I'll get a picture of an iPhone instead of an iPad. And I got the iPhone that comes up. So it looks pretty realistic in terms of an iPhone, actually. And it loads up pretty quickly. There's nothing, this is a Blink application. But it looks pretty realistic, though. So a lot of people are very happy with the simulator. Or emulator. Actually, Android calls it an emulator, iPhone calls it a simulator. It's an emulator. But because you have full internet access, you actually have more support on this emulator than you do. Oh, it's still configured for i2. You have more features in this emulator that you'll have in any Android emulator. So this is a lot more feature rich. Because the problem is, Android you can just copy it onto any phone. iPhone you can't. So they have to build better emulator support. So, long story short, most people are pretty happy with the simulator. And then you can download and install different simulator versions through the Apple Store and get simulated other devices that are Apple related. Only Apple related, however. So. Anyway, so what I'm going to do on Wednesday is run you through a tour of this particular interface. So if you have your computer with you, you can run through the same tour on your system. And then we'll build Hello World. And I'll talk a little bit about Objective-C in terms of the of the way that we're doing things in the XIB interface builder. And then all of the subcomponents. In fact, instead of having to worry about, this is an example of the interface builder actually. What we have over here are a bunch of files in the Android system that are all broken out into directories and stuff. We can do that as well. We can break out this file structure, and we're going to notice, depending upon your install, I should see this project. Oop, the project I believe I have on my, can't get rid of that screen. The project I believe is going to be on my desktop. Here it is right here. Hello. So I've got a main folder, and then I've got this Xcode project. If I click on the Xcode project, it'll actually load for me, which is nice. A lot of people actually prefer to load it this way versus loading up Xcode and then figuring out your project. But if you go into the project folder, very similar format to the Android development, except for, you know, everything is a little bit simpler. Not as many subfolders. We don't have a resource folder and a raw folder and a menu folder and a this folder and that folder. There's only one folder here. And all the files are here. So it's actually kind of nice. It's actually simple compared to Android. And then if we want to, we can, you know, drag and drop. Same thing that we could have done in the, same thing that we could have done in the XML editor. But this is big. If you haven't been in the Android class, don't worry about it. But if you compare this to the Android XML editor, it's a itsy little screen that's all black and white, kind of like not very colorful or anything. This is, you know, nice, you know, compared. So, and then this is the window here, so it really can move the window around. You can put another window out here, and you can put data views, gesture recognizers, all different types of objects, custom objects. You can list, and this is actually what they call the library. It's on the bottom, so you can add a view controller, you know, and you can visually see how the application is going to come together. This is what we're going to do with the tab view, which is going to be the first application that we're going to build after Hello World. That'll have a bunch of these guys here with a main controller, because I have to talk to you about model view controller next time as well. So there's a little bit of a repeat in the beginning of the course because of the Objective-C component. If you don't understand certain things about Objective-C, it makes iPhone in sort of a battle to kind of explain to you. So, all right, I see our time is up. I say it's 8:12. So I'll leave you with that. Your homework is to essentially get a working system with a working Xcode version on it. Make sure you can run the emulator. You know, I have to just find this button up here, create Hello World, just a sample project. Make sure everything is working. And then on Wednesday, we're going to run through this tutorial, actually. Build Hello World, and then we're going to build a tab view controller, and then we're going to start building and building. So usually one of the 2 days I'm going to try and do the lecture part, and the other day I'll try and do the code example stuff. I like to do code stuff on Wednesdays for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Probably because it gives me the whole week to prepare the examples. Versus Monday morning, which I never have anything ready. So. If you came in late, please make sure to sign the roster, which is over here. Make sure you get points for being here today. Questions, comments, concerns? Good.